Listeners of the Calvary Cast, welcome into episode 134 on a May day. I am Graham Parker. Across from me is Jess Miller. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. Did you spray something in your mouth while
I did, yes.
A little voice lube?
It is, yes. That's exactly what it is.
you're-
Us pros, we know these little secrets. So
I was going to say, your voice sounds better than it did before.
there you go. See, that's what I'm saying. The ad said it would. And so 2-day Amazon shipping, can't go wrong.
Really? Mm-hmm. Did you see that we're getting a Amazon facility here in town?
I have heard rumors of this.
So hopefully we actually get that mysterious 2-day Amazon shipping, which used to exist here and is now gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did get a little better though. It's not long. It's not 2-day anymore, right? But now you can get stuff within a few days usually, right?
I ordered some stuff today. It said it'd be here Saturday.
Yeah, that's
which
not
is
bad.
too long.
Right. Listen to how we are in our modern world. I remember the days of you had to mail in a check for something.
Yes.
And then
Ordering out of a catalog.
10 to 14 business days from the time they get it or whatever. I mean, you're talking weeks before you get what you...
Hey.
Now we're like,
no,
3 days. What?
They promised it, right?
Yeah.
It's their fault.
I know.
Amazon's like 2-day delivery. And then they actually had 2-day delivery.
Yeah.
And then they take it away and don't expect us to get mad about it.
I know. Because what happened, right? COVID happened, and then people were like, wow, this delivery thing is really great. I don't have to shop. I don't have to do anything. I just write on my phone or wherever.
Yep.
So anyway.
And then they take it away and think that we don't notice.
I know. But if we have it here, maybe that'll help. If we have a, I wonder, distribution.
Well, it's supposed to be,
center
I don't know. I think we're going to get those Amazon vans that you see, which I would think would be more efficient because you're cutting out a middleman. You're
Right.
just, I don't know. We'll see.
That's interesting.
So we shall see. All right. That's all the banter I have. Special episode today.
Listener feedback.
We asked and you answered. I am beyond proud of our listening audience.
Yeah.
These people, you need to give yourself a round of applause. Let's see. This is for you. Thank you. You guys responded. We asked for questions, and we had like 25, 30 questions that were sent in. Some of you sent in multiples of questions, but that's okay. We'll take it. We'll take it.
And this was off of, you did a video on
That
social
thing,
media.
that thing the kids are on.
All the kids are on it, on the interwebs. No, what platform was it? Did you put that
Instagram. So the
Instagram,
video is
wow.
on Instagram, and then I posted just a thing on the church's Instagram and Facebook pages.
Interesting.
So,
Well, it shows people are following that, and they're responding.
they
they're
like the
engaging.
real things as much as I despise them. They like the little video things, so we might have to do those more often. You do the next one though. I'm
Okay,
not going to tell you how many hours it took me to figure that out.
Really, how to do one? You'll have to show me because I've never done one either.
My wife was sitting there laughing at me because I don't use the Instagram app. I don't post reels, and I don't know. Do you know there's a boomerang on there? I did. Yeah, you can just I don't even know what it does. I think it turns you into a GIF essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to mess around with that.
all sorts of weird stuff. So,
The danger is being cringy on those. Like there are people that you watch and they're just naturals.
Yeah.
On the reels.
Like
and,
me.
Like you. Yeah, that was you for sure. But no, and then, oh, by the way, remember we said we were going to make some videos for the church or something describing who we are or whatever. Remind me to show you one that I found that we wouldn't want to do, but it was almost in the same vein of what we were talking about. Okay? I just throw that in because I'll have to try to find it.
Now everybody else is going to be curious. They're going to be like, what's that video? What is it?
Yeah.
So.
It was just a guy trying to explain.
Was it real or?
It was real. His a small church.
Okay.
Why small church is better, whatever.
Yeah.
And the difference between him and the big box stores, basically, or
Yeah.
the big box churches. But he would say something, he'd be looking at the camera, and then all of a sudden he'd turn to walk away, and it would show him somewhere else, like sitting at a park bench, and then he'd say something else, and then he'd stand up to walk away, and then they'd cut and it'd show him up at the front of the church or whatever.
So it's supposed to be serious.
Yeah, it's serious, but it's
really kind of poorly done.
It's really poorly done. If you're going to do things like that, it's got to be good.
Okay. Wow.
And I was watching this guy the other day, and he was actually on a hike, and he's got all the he's like holding the camera out, whatever, and he's talking to the camera.
Is this a church video?
The guy's a Christian. I follow his videos, but it was more he's on Christian productivity. So he reviews all books on productivity and stuff for Christians and that. But anyway, it was just interesting, and I was like, but everything looked good and sounded good. So he must have invested in his
He would be what you would call an influencer, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. I'm assuming he has lots of followers. Because you watch these kinds of videos, right?
I do. I really love YouTube. And
I don't watch those things. So
and
that's
the
why
shorts, I've really got to watch. I was even thinking about that today. I can get caught up in those for too long.
I know that I could, and that's why I don't even go down the path.
No, but regular videos, I use YouTube all the time.
All right. Well,
enough of that.
Enough of that. This is going to be a fun podcast. I think this might be one of the funnest ones we've ever done.
Okay.
Because of all these questions.
I'm excited.
So let's start out with some light ones. Aiden Droid 924 asks, who's the best church drummer in the world?
Easy. Who? Kevin Bergstrom.
That's a good one. I was going to also, Kevin is good. And I would say David Zimmer, who drums on all of Sovereign Grace's music and stuff.
Okay.
You know?
I thought Aiden was looking for us to say Aiden Thomas.
He probably was, but I mean, we can't give him that.
I'll give it to Aiden. You're a phenomenal drummer.
He is a good drummer, but let's not let him get
And we're going to miss you next year when you go away to school.
Yeah, he has to come back. He's signing a contract.
Every weekend flies from Montana. What we'll do is we'll have a private plane, pick him up every weekend, bring him back for the service.
With massive success of the podcast.
Yes.
We'll do that for sure.
Right.
So, okay, this is my father-in-law. He's the one that blew up the
oh boy,
the feed here. How many kids are you and your wife going to have? More.
I'm assuming that was for you.
I was assuming it's for you because it's more interesting to ask you.
Wow. I don't think we're going to have any more unless something way out of the ordinary happens here. I don't know. We're right at that. We're right at the age where that potential slows way down. Okay, funny thing. We're almost 50.
Yep.
And I found out that for a 50-year-old woman to get pregnant, if they're actively trying, they only have like a 1% chance of achieving it. Wow. If they go on, like the stars go on the whatever they do to help people do this, get pregnant, they only have like 10-20% chance or something. So
the stars.
Like when I
like famous people. They go spend lots of money to go.
Yes, and they have babies at like 60 or whatever, but
they do that?
I don't know. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but some of them have them pretty old. Anyway, we're not having any more kids.
All right. When will Nebraska ever have a normal football team? There is that question. There is also another one down below like that. Like, what was it? Why is Nebraska football so painful to watch? Well, I'll have to give you the answer, people. Nebraska football is going to have a fantastic year this year. Okay, let me give you a couple of reasons. Dylan Raiola, new quarterback, 5-star, fantastic. He's a real quarterback. We got real wide receivers, real defense.
Wow.
We have, experienced offensive line, a schedule that lines up for us. This is the year. Put your money on Nebraska right now.
Wow.
There
Exciting.
You go.
Okay.
And it's never painful when you're a fan. It is actually painful. Do you brush your teeth once a day or more?
More.
Okay, that's good for you. I only brush my teeth usually once, but it counts as twice because we have this fancy electric toothbrush now. So it does this thing for me.
Good.
Okay, this is the one I came up with, and it goes with one that Aaron Thomas sent in, which this might be your most embarrassing church faux pas, is that you didn't know what faux pas meant.
Truth.
So Aaron asked, what's your most embarrassing church faux pas? And I was curious if you had a funniest preaching moment. Mm-hmm. So can you think of...
No.
Really? Nothing?
I can't think of anything. I haven't had let's knock on wood. I don't want to have a most embarrassing church moment.
Okay, I'll give you one. And I think it's, for me,
Uh-huh.
And it's like a series of years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like more like the video you were referencing earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had a number of years that like my church life was like that.
Mm-hmm.
So college, post-college, I thought, well, I really like Mars Hill and Mark Driscoll and the aesthetic they have. And when a couple of things I can remember, and this our pastor back in Hot Springs was very gracious to us young people, giving us lots of rope to hang ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I did some stage design that would be less than it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So like vision this 4x8 sheets of plywood, OSB, you know, the chipboard, spray painted black, put into a triangle with spray painted words on them, and then clip on desk lamps to illuminate them.
Wow.
Set the corners of the stage.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did
I think that was for
Pastor
Easter.
Matt, right?
Yeah,
so
Pastor
what
Matt
did he
let us-
did he not say something about this?
He
or?
commented when they were after we had been removed, and they just sat outside the church for months. He'd be like, "Would you guys take care of those?"
Wowzers.
So I just think about that, and then but the first attempt at like a pallet wall was disastrous, and I look at that and I go, So
yeah,
I
guess I've
appreciate
had-
that he let me do that, but I would never let anybody
Yeah,
do
I
that.
think like as I look back, there are things I cringe over.
Yeah, that makes me.
But they
cringe.
weren't maybe even in the moment what I would have considered
Right.
too embarrassing. But maybe I cringe back on some of my early times.
I can think of a couple times where I've missung words.
Mm-hmm.
That could be funny. I can think of one particular time because I watched it where like my voice just gave out. It's like it just it was gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of humorous to me.
Right.
Thankfully, nothing viral.
Yeah.
So, nothing. Okay. All right. Jamie from the Pregnancy Center asked, "How was the Pregnancy Center Gala?" Since you were not there, I will answer. It was very good.
Good.
And we like the Pregnancy Center a lot and thankful for what they're doing, and should have another gala next year. And to all of our people, if they do another little event like they did on the Friday night with the Mark guy, they should go. I would have gone, but I'd heard him twice. My wife went, and I had to watch the kids, but it was really good. Okay, a couple of questions on this line about hymnals and hymn books. So Ike Stan and Tramp of the Hills asked, one, do you think hymn books will/are making a comeback? Would you ever go back? Pros and cons. And then another question, is it time for an updated hymn book to be written? So I will start on this one. First of all, there are updated hymn books. The one that we have at our church is an updated hymn book. MacArthur's Hymns of Grace. The Gettys, I believe, are also making a new hymnal. So there are updated hymnals out there. Are they making a comeback? I don't think so. But I guess I don't know.
Yeah, and not that I've heard of.
How do you evaluate that? I don't know. But I don't see them probably making any real substantial comeback.
Yeah, I would much prefer to sing off the screen, honestly. And I like everybody else doing that too because it gets their heads out of a hymn book.
Right. Yeah, so that leads to the pros and cons. Because pros, if you know how to read music, it can help you learn the song, the idea of singing parts, and that you're singing a part that is suited for your musical abilities. So if you sing a lower register, you have the lower bass and alto, and upper register, you can sing the melody, soprano, tenor.
I just
stuff.
always go with it how I'm feeling.
Which is how most people do. And most people, it is sad in the sense that we've lost most of our musical abilities as a society. So but I mean, you just can't, there's just some things you go, oh, that's just the way it is now to some degree. Maybe I'm throwing in the towel or whatever. I've heard of some churches doing stuff to actively teach their congregation how to read music and to sing parts and stuff. That's great. I don't have the ability or time to do that. But I don't like, a couple of things, the reasons. Well, one, we have the hymnals in our church. You could probably speak about why you got the hymnals, I guess. We have the hymns of grace, the songs that we sing that are in the hymnal. We put the number on the screen so people can follow along if they want to. But I very rarely see people using them.
Right. Yeah. We got them originally. If for one, it was to replace the older ones that we had. And that's when the hymns of grace came out, is when we just replaced the old ones and put
That
those
was a
in there.
few years before I got here, I think.
Yeah, and but we have not used them much. I suppose they're very helpful if your sound or your
That is helpful.
projector goes out.
Yep.
We've had to have that. There might be other occasions, like just more family style events where you're kind of
We pulled them out for small groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think
that I don't like people don't use them properly. They usually stick their nose in the book and look down.
Mm-hmm.
And so their singing at quality, I think, is diminished. I also don't like the lack of freedom. I like people able to have their hands free, to raise them and to be more engaged emotionally and physically with what they're doing. The other thing is, if you stick with a hymnal, there are continually songs we're adding, and those aren't in the hymnal.
Right.
So you got to have a way to sing those. So the other thing too, for people that don't want to sing, if you're not using like Words on the Wall or something like that, and you're just using hymnals, then they're going to say, well, I can't sing because I don't have a hymnal. When the words are on the wall, you can't use that excuse.
good.
So that's my thought on a hymnal. Shane Massey said, oh, and by the way, Shane, thank you. He came up and told me a couple weeks ago that our podcast on marriage saved their lives, saved their marriage. He said he doesn't have to read any other books, podcast, nothing. He said, thank you.
Wonderful.
So that's what we're here for.
That's it.
If you can pick one, which gospel is your favorite to study and why? That's a good question.
Yeah, for me, I'd say John, if I had to pick one. And probably because of the easy Greek and the depth of his gospel. Just the theological depth is really awesome. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I would probably say John as well, and probably because it's the one I've spent the most time in.
Right.
And I do his theological reflection and interaction is more than the other gospels and is more like the epistles, which I'm more naturally drawn to. And so I think that, although I'm reading Luke right now, and Luke is good too. So good question. E. Cushy asked, how do you pick which book of the Bible to read after you finish one? Do you follow a reading plan?
Yes. I think that's the best way to do it. Follow some kind of plan. Get on a reading plan where it leads you from one to the next.
Right.
And preferably, something like you're reading from one book of the Old Testament and one book of the New.
Sure.
Or like I'm reading through 4 sections of the Bible every day, so 4 chapters a day. So, but not everybody does that. I understand. So I would definitely have some kind of plan, and there are tons out there available.
If you don't have some sort of plan in place, you will kind of not be sure where you're going.
Right.
And if you're not using say you're just doing a plan where it's just, I'm going to read through this gospel this month. I'm going to read, 28 chapters in Matthew, so I will read 1 chapter a day, and that'll basically take me a month. Some sort of plan like that. You should have a plan for what you're going to do next.
Also, if you have a plan, then it puts whatever you read that day in the sovereignty of God. Of course, it would otherwise, but it's like there will be times you're reading things that you needed to read that particular thing that day.
Yeah.
So it's another reason I think have a plan.
There's a lot of plans that you can get out there, but it is good to have one. Okay, now we get into a little bit bigger questions. Caitlin Fix asked, she just said Hebrew Roots Movement. So first of all, I'll say we did this podcast, episode 124, on, I think it was entitled, Should Christians Observe Old Testament Feasts, Customs, and Laws?
Right.
And we touched a little bit on the Hebrew Roots Movement there.
And maybe she's thinking, too, that we should
do a whole podcast.
And get into a little more detail with it.
We could do that.
Because it is a growing movement, and it's problematic.
Yep. That would not be this podcast. We'd need to do a little bit of prep on that.
Right.
But the Hebrew Roots Movement as a whole is bad.
Yes.
Bad. Right? Because basically they're saying the church has lost its Jewish identity, so it just needs to go back to this Jewishness. It's all, I was thinking about it, it's ironic. They are conflating the church in Israel in a really bad way. It's kind of the opposite of what other people would say.
Right.
We don't want to do, you know.
Right.
They're saying like the church is Israel in that it's actually Israel.
Right. And the biggest problem is that everything they do goes against what Paul tells you to do. Everything Paul tells the Gentiles to do, they go against that, and it's dangerous.
Yep.
They play around with Torah in a way that New Testament believers aren't supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So that's part of the problem. Spend more time in Paul, and you will see that this is not a good idea.
Go read Ephesians 2. Go read the book of Galatians. Go read the book of Hebrews, and even. And read how the New Testament writers are saying over and over, all the Old Testament customs and feasts and laws, they're all shadows. And so I think these people, the Hebrew roots people, they're conflating the shadow with the substance in many ways.
Right. But we'll take that one down as maybe some of these would turn into new podcasts, whole podcasts. So if you've asked a question and we're just answering it kind of within a couple minutes, know this, we'll look at these and we may actually come back to some of these and make them on podcast.
And some of these, we're not even answering every question because some of them are entire podcast discussions. Right. And so if we don't answer your question, it's nothing personal. It could be, but it's not. Okay, Rachel Lennon asked, and we we discussed this before the podcast even, is traditional Sunday school becoming a thing of the past, similar to Sunday evening services? Okay, she's got another question here. What does the pros and cons of post-COVID ministry look like? So let's take it one at a time. First of all, traditional Sunday school becoming a thing of the past, similar to Sunday evening services. You, sir, what is your thought on that?
Well, I would say yes, it is. But what we need to ask is, should it be? So we need to be analyzing Sunday school and Sunday evening services and really be able to answer the question, why are we not doing them? And if the answer to that is a good answer, then don't do them. If it's not a good answer, then do them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So in other words, it's something we always, as pastors, we wrestle with, because culturally, let me put it this way, culturally, yes, Sunday school has become a thing of the past, same with Sunday nights. You try to have something on Sunday nights, and even the people in your congregation that you might think would be there aren't coming anymore. So the question is, what is going on with that? And culturally, yeah, it is. Both of those things are going away. The question is, should they be? And that's something that we need to talk about and think about.
Why do we think it's beneficial? So in our church, we had Sunday school in the morning for a long time, which also, like, it's interesting actually to look at the history of Sunday school, because historically it wasn't what we do now. It was actually school is what it started, and then it's kind of evolved and changed. But we're saying we have a formal teaching time outside of the Sunday morning worship service,
and that's what it is. The benefit of that is that the church. And again, we go back to even an Ephesians 4 concept here, where Jesus gives to the church teachers, and Sunday school and Sunday evening in our format was designed for teaching. It wasn't another worship service, and not even really preaching, though the word gets preached in that, but there's teaching. I think Christians need teaching. The church needs teaching.
Right.
It's just that for whatever reason they don't think they do, and they need it from their local church.
That's an important point.
They need it from their local church, because then things are contextualized to their local church life. And if the shepherd teachers put out something like, they say, we're going to have a class this fall for 8 weeks, either Sunday morning or Sunday evening on whatever topic, it's because they really believe the church that they shepherd will be benefited by this. Yeah. And I think then the church should respond largely with a submission to that direction. And I know that's controversial, maybe to some degree, but everything I just said there has scriptural backing to it, because the Bible amplifies the importance of biblical teaching by people who are given by God to teach, and the importance of that teaching. And Timothy warns about or Paul warns Timothy about the time when even the people of God will not endure sound teaching. They're going to turn away.
Right.
So I think that we need the whole point of either Sunday school or Sunday evening would be further teaching, maybe on more, on books of the Bible or theological doctrines or other things,
right.
That are important for the church to know and to learn and should just participate in.
Right. Yeah. Good. Enough said there. Okay. Pros and cons of post-COVID ministry. That's another interesting question. Do you have thoughts on that? I have some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I would think like some of the. Well, you go ahead on that. I hadn't thought enough.
You think about it, and you can react to some of these things. Pro, I think one is larger, more pragmatic churches have kind of taken a hit. Mm-hmm. I think that some of their philosophy,
which is a pro, you're saying.
I'm saying that's a pro, right? In terms of like, if your philosophy of ministry was basically a giant show, and then once people realize I don't really need a show, they're not coming back. That philosophy, in theory, the thought was like maybe we'll see those churches hollow out more and healthier churches growing. Mm-hmm. The con is I don't think that's really happened, right? So another pro is we've had to think, and there's been a lot more discussions in the broader church about political theology. How do we relate to our government?
That's a good one.
And a lot of discussion happening around that. What is the relationship to the church and state? When is it lawful for Christians to disobey their government? There's a book I want to get right now on Romans 13 that's just come out that looks really good. So some of those things. Another pro is thinking about the church and its essential nature, which I think is really important. When churches were not deemed as essential things, in COVID, but yet a pot shop was and a strip club was. Mm-hmm. People had to reevaluate and go, no, church actually is essential, but why is it essential? So that's a pro. Con, some of the things that I was thinking about, I noticed amongst people when you couldn't get together for us was 6-8 weeks, there was a desire to be together and a realization, oh, this has been taken away and I miss it and I don't have anything else. I really want to be back. I thought we would see more of that and it might have longer reverberation. And I don't know if it did. So that'd be one thing. The con was also that some people just stopped attending church, even good churches, and never came back. Mm-hmm. Another one I was thinking about was the real fear that really dominated people's lives and still is dominating some people's lives to this day, where they just kind of locked away and never came back out. Right. And that's not a good thing. Yeah, those would be some thoughts that I'd have.
I think those are good. I share those.
Mm-hmm. Tramp of the Hills asked, what is the biblical basis for a youth group? Is there one?
No, there's not. But there's no biblical prohibition, and it's okay to have one and teach the kids the Bible. And
so are you saying that you're not a regulative principle holder when it comes to the to youth groups?
Well, no, because I would say that even though it doesn't give you
a prohibition not to do it,
right, or a command to do it,
right,
would be more along that, and I would say, well, or a prohibition, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I'd say that what you're having is you're getting that age group together and you're teaching them the Bible and they're fellowshipping as much as youth fellowship.
It's fellowship instead of like, hey, watch me do this stupid thing. And
exactly. But so no, there's really no, that I can see in the Bible, anything that I would appeal to in that, but I could be wrong. Somebody else could.
I agree. It's not an explicit biblical basis. I think you could have an implicit biblical basis, but then the youth group has to be a ministry of the word. Mm-hmm. So, and I was thinking about this. We've talked about doing a whole podcast on children's ministry philosophy because we do hold to a word-centered children's ministry philosophy. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to have a youth group, it needs to be word-based. I was thinking, but Jesus even gives instruction like, let the little children come to me. Mm-hmm. So there is this element, the gospel is for children, and it's obviously being applied in a way that a child can understand it.
Right.
So they can exercise saving faith. So in that way, there's kind of an implicit.
Yeah. But and this gets into the bigger topic too of like children's church and different things.
Right.
And interestingly, the when you read like through Ephesians, okay, Ephesians was a letter that was going to be read to the church as they gathered in worship. And he directly addresses children, assuming the children were going to be in the worship service.
So family integrated worship, is that where we're going?
To a degree. I think churches on Sunday mornings need to have more family integrated worship, not less.
Yep.
I am not family integrated worship to the extent where I would say you can't have a nursery or you can't have a children's church for the time of the teaching, which is what we do.
Right.
But we have to acknowledge that we don't see that in the scripture, and that you better make sure that time is they're getting taught the Bible.
Yep.
But the idea of having, for me as a dad, like for my kids up past a certain age to be going off into children's church, and then it's even a junior high group, and then it's high school. Some of these churches they have youth group during the morning worship service. Mm-hmm. I think that's wrong.
Right.
And as a dad, I just couldn't do that. Right. So at any rate, but it is interesting. Like when you see in scripture, the children, it was assumed they would be in the early church service. So
Matt, you can send us your thoughts, because I know you have an opinion on that because you're a youth pastor.
We're not downing youth ministry.
No,
we have a
youth
youth group here.
No, and I know
it's just that the question was, I couldn't think of anything that would do
I would
that.
imagine he's agreeing with what we're saying.
Right.
Okay, yes, another question on that, though. Discussion on practical applications of how to integrate a youth group that is primarily from outside of the local church into the church body.
Yeah, no, that is tough.
That's a tougher question.
Because... Oh, man, and that's probably why he's asking this, because there are a ton of things to think through with that, a ton of issues you have. So largely now churches, conservative churches, are comprised of homeschool families. They homeschool in part because they don't want the influence of the world's kids on their kids.
Right.
And that's something I sympathize with greatly. Right. Like I'm thinking, I know exactly what you're saying. So now all of a sudden, if you're a youth pastor and you want part of your youth ministry to be an outreach, well, now you're bringing in kids that are unchurched, coming with all of the problems that they could be walking in with. And we've seen this, not here, but at our previous church, this became an issue where a family was like, we don't want our kids
having this
they had this extreme view, like a public school kid could contaminate their child or whatever, which I wasn't condoning that. We actually met with them. They left the church and everything because we're like, the things she was saying like wasn't right. But the issues that you could run into are very real, and there could be very real concerns from parents in your church. So the answer to that, it's very... To me, it would be it's a delicate situation, and you have to be very vigilant and watchful and apply biblical principles in that. So
now, when I read that, I was actually thinking in a different vein.
Okay, maybe I was totally just on my own
we'll give
there.
two totally different answers here in a way, because I'm thinking of more like you have unchurched kids that are coming in, and you're not so much worried about the influence they may have in the youth as much as how do you get these kids that maybe are new believers or whatever just to see the importance of the local church?
Right.
And they don't want to come on Sunday morning. They just want to come to youth group.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of thoughts I had was, one, encourage them to attend the main gathering of the church by inviting them and giving them rides or whatever it is they need to do, right? Really try to get them into that main gathering of the church, and then start introducing them to people, get them so they begin to know the people in the church, and the people in the church begin to know them, right? Make sure the pastors and elders know them. So there starts to become more of a personal relationship with the other leaders of the church. You could even do this by having the lead teaching pastor come and teach from time to time in the youth group, right? That'd be a way to do that. The other thing was very simple, like have the rest of the church be praying for the youth group, and especially these kids that are unchurched. Maybe they're believers, maybe they're unbelievers. Have them praying for them by name, different things like that.
Yeah, because I see now the question. That's why you're right in what he's asking. How do we incorporate them into the church body, not just the youth group?
So should I cut out your entire answer before?
I don't know.
No, I won't.
I think it's actually a pretty good answer. But
Best
that's
answer I gave all
if
day.
his question would have been what I answered, I gave a good answer. But no,
Somebody else
you're
might
right though. Making the congregation aware of what's going on is helpful.
There is a danger, and I see this in our own church too, right? Where ministries or groups can become disconnected from the rest of the body, and the body doesn't even know what's going on, who's there, and not everybody in our church is going to be able to serve or be a part of youth group or Awana or any other Bible study or whatever. But we should know like what's going on and be praying for one another and things like that. So
sounds good.
Good. Okay, a few more here. My father-in-law, Dave Georgieff, asked, is heaven a physical place or not? Explain. That's kind of an interesting question, I thought.
It is an interesting question. And I think the answer is complicated because what we know is heaven is a place. It is a created place. But in it, the reason I say it's complicated is really interesting because in it you have spiritual beings.
Yes.
In that, I would include, obviously, angels and the souls of Christians and believers of the past who have died and have gone there. But you also have physical elements like the body of our Lord Jesus Christ is there. He is there physically. Yep. You have maybe Enoch and Elijah as well there physically. Yep. And so, the Bible, when we have throne room scenes, we see things like thrones, that are there. And there seem to be some physical things to that. So the heaven as we refer to it now is, to me, the way I'd answer that is it's a kind of mysterious, but we just would have to compile what you see in Scripture there and just say, okay, that's what it is. I mean, it has all those elements, recognizing that I think heaven is a temporary, this place called heaven now, where my soul would go if I died, is a temporary place. Right. In that the goal, where everything's going, is that heaven will be on earth. Right. In this new creation. And I could be wrong on that, but that's part of what I think we see is that we think we're going to go to this place and that's where we stay. We don't. We come to a new earth and live on it. So that's how I'd answer. There's both physical and spiritual elements to heaven.
Yeah, I don't think I'd really add anything other than I was thinking about John 16. It's John 16, right? When I go and I will prepare a place for you in my Father's house, there are many rooms, right? It seems to be like physical place in that sense. But yet we know we're not in resurrected bodies. But yet 2 Corinthians 5 is kind of interesting where he's talking about putting off the earthly body, earthly tent, and a heavenly one. Isn't necessarily speaking of the resurrected body there, I don't believe. So there's some sort of temporal body maybe we get when we're in heaven. In 2 Corinthians 5.
Well, that's the discussion.
That's the discussion.
That's the discussion in that text.
I'm saying that's an interesting passage.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it there.
Right.
Okay. Good. Aveline asked, this is a question about sharing the gospel. So I will refer her, first of all, back to the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago on what is the gospel. But she asked, what is the best way to be a witness or vessel for God? Sometimes it's hard to know when the right time to witness is. And I clarified this with her, what she's asking is like, when is the best time to share the gospel with someone, and what's the best way to go about sharing that? That's a really big, important question.
The best way to be a witness, first of all, is with holiness and joy and love. I think the things that you have to adorn yourself with the gospel is a good way to be a witness first, in conduct, speech, behavior, love. And, I'm preaching myself here. Right. Like, what is it about you that you have Christ that makes that something to witness about, right? Mm-hmm. Or the world would notice. In a dark world, right? That's part of the question. So I'm answering that like your adorning of the gospel in behavior and love is probably the best way to be a witness to people. And then pray for the wisdom or the opportunities. What Christians have all done, they pray for an opportunity to witness to a person. And sometimes that's just in your relationship with them, or God will open a door for that.
Yep.
If it's a friend, if it's somebody you've known for a long time, if it's a friend, I think there comes a point where you've got to just say, we need to have a talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
And I've not done that to this point, and I need to. I think that's coming to play. So God will providentially arrange circumstances to where doors are open for you now to share the gospel.
Yeah.
The key is being ready when that happens.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think just to return to what you initially started with, your life lived as a convictional Christian is really important. And your a communication of the truths of the gospel will be heard more when your life actually reflects it. So if you don't live like a Christian at all, and nobody could ever even guess that you're a Christian, which I know that's not the truth for Aveline at all, then the words that you say when you put the formulation of the gospel together is not going to be received as well. The other encouragements that I guess I'd add here is you have to know the gospel for yourself, the content of the gospel. Be very familiar with that. Sometimes I think timidity in sharing the gospel comes from just our lack of knowledge. So study in that sense. Like you said, be prayerfully looking for opportunities. If you're in a situation where you feel like you should share the gospel or say something, you probably should. Oftentimes the Spirit works that way to impress something upon our hearts. The other thing that I'd say with that, though, is sharing the gospel doesn't necessarily always mean that we share every element of the gospel. I think about 1 Corinthians 3, right? That some plant, some water, but God gives the increase. You might just be a planter. Somebody else might be a waterer. So depending on the context of your conversation, it might just be for you an opportunity for you to talk about sin and the brokenness of the world and why things are that way. And you might not be able to get all the way to Christ, but you've started something. So that would be something. Those would be just a couple of thoughts there.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think if you ask God for opportunities and wisdom, He gives it.
Yeah.
And but if it's a friend, and the reason I bring that up is I know what you can be friends with people that aren't Christians, and you're like that's actually harder to share the gospel usually with somebody like that than just a stranger.
Yeah.
And I would say that break down that barrier at least once and say, I'm a Christian. I've never shared the gospel with you, so here I go.
Yeah.
Well,
and some of that comes from fear of man, and that's where we do need to go. Then that's sin.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid of sharing the gospel with them out of fear of hurting them or causing some,
or if they're just making it awkward, bros, that are hanging, and you start saying, "Hey, I got to tell you about Jesus, dude. You're making this weird now. What is this? Why are you making it weird or whatever?" But I think just do it at least once with friends, coworkers, friends at whatever. Yeah. So just the Lord will open opportunities and you just walk through it. But if people notice something different in your life, they'll see that. Yeah. They'll see that, and it could lead to questions that would open up doors.
All right, last one. Mark Ketchum asked, assurance of salvation. Now, I asked for further clarification, and he didn't respond. So, Mark, you're just going to get what you get.
Yeah. So here's what I would say, Mark. I think you're saved. You're good. You're good, man. I hereby pronounce you saved.
I don't think that's what he was looking for, but if he was, there you go.
Well, to be fair, though, what he sent, there was no question mark.
Right.
It was just assurance of salvation. So, again, that would be one that we would do. And we've probably had a podcast on before, but it'd be a good one. We haven't, actually. You're kidding me. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Mark. We're going to have a podcast on assurance of salvation.
But to answer your question, right, we should give him a little bit of something now, right? About assurance of salvation?
I did. I just assured him of his salvation. I've spent private time with him. He was in my small group for a couple of years. I'm pretty sure it's good to go.
All right, there we go. You can go read your Bible too, and you get some good things there.
The Spirit testifies to your spirit that you are a child of God.
Romans 8:16.
And so the one who assures you of salvation is God himself. You're looking to Christ. Then he does. There is evidence from life. Read 1 John.
Yes. Go read 1 John.
For eternal life, there's evidence that you've been born of God.
Yep.
Read 1 John.
The one thing I think it's helpful to know with assurance of salvation is that it does wax and wane to degrees, right? Assurance of salvation is not faith. There is a distinction between those two, and that's a helpful distinction too. You can have faith, but assurance can waver. A couple of things, like you said, assurance is found outside of us. So if you're not assured of your salvation, what are you looking to? It's an external thing. Be looking to Christ. There are things that can decrease assurance, and I would say sin. Trial, temptation, things like that. Negligence of spiritual disciplines can cause our assurance to wane. But like you said, Romans 8, 1 John 2, by this we know we've come to know him if we keep his commandments. 1 John 3:14, we know that we've passed out of death into life because we love the brothers. Whoever does not love abides in death. 1 John 5, I write these things to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life. So the scriptures are filled with passages that want people to know that you can have assurance of salvation. But yeah, like you said, go read 1 John 5. All right. That's it. That was good. That was good. Thank you all for responding to my ridiculous video, which I didn't know how to do, and it's kind of satirical in it. But maybe we'll do more of those because obviously people responded. Yeah. Well, we thank you for listening, and we do pray that the conversations have been helpful, first of all, to the members of Calvary Bible Church, that we would be built up as the body of Christ until we all attain to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God. If you're part of another local church, we pray our conversation helps you serve faithfully where the Lord has placed you. If you enjoy the podcast, consider giving us a rating and a review. I'm sure this episode's a 5-star episode, maybe even 6. If you had the ability to give 6, you could. We love interaction with our listeners. All the interaction we got for this episode came from you guys. So let us know what you think about the show. Send us topics to discuss, or questions or comments you might have. Easiest way to get a hold of us if you're part of our church is just to talk to us on a Sunday morning. Send us a text, give us a call. Otherwise, you can send us an email at thecalvarycast@gmail.com, or you can send it to us on social media. Follow us online. We are on Instagram and X at the Calvary Cast. At Calvary, we exist for the glory of God, the good of his people, and the Great Commission. Until next time.